This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Come, let us explore the End of Renunciation, how meditation changes the game, followed by group practice. Renunciation is the sourpuss sanctimony that indulges in the duality, that says, I'm going to embrace this and shove that away. And doing that is going to make me good. Let's explore that. Saying, this thing here, I'm going to reach for and hold on to, does not give us peace. Saying this thing over here, I'm going to shove away. That aversion, that hate, cannot give us love. There is an organelle in our brain towards the bottom called the amygdala, and it is dedicated, or it is the seat of both anxiety and aggression. Renunciation sparks that, triggers that. That is not the path of peace or love. So, how do we transcend this duality? We do it two ways. We transcend perceptual duality, and we transcend remedial duality. Let's start with perceptual. And to illustrate this, I'm going to turn to the 11th passage of Spaciousness of Vajrasattva. The mind of awakening gives rise to all appearances. So, number one, we are embracing all that can be perceived, emoted, intended, reasoned, recalled, or imagined. All of it. Not saying, I'm only going to embrace some of it and the rest can go to hell. Nope, we're going to embrace all of it. And then we're going to say, and oh yeah, by the way, the capacity to notice these things is our Buddha nature. The Tathagata Garbha, if you prefer Sanskrit. It has been said that our autonomic nervous system, or perhaps is the structure of our Buddha nature. It is the equipment that helps us to both notice and release all that can be perceived. And so we're not saying, whereas a card-carrying member of patriarchy might say, dude, that's a bad thought, and if you think a bad thought, you're a bad person. Matriarchy is going to say, no. The capacity to perceive is useful. It's integral to the path. It serves us. Let's take it a step further. As we rest in our exhalation, whatever we watched during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even less graspable. Bearing that in mind, as we rest in our exhalation, whatever our experience, whatever birth we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel like that which is unborn. As we rest in our exhalation, whatever destructibility we might have watched during our previous inhalation could feel indestructible. Let's put it another way. As we rest, let me go over here. As we rest during our exhalation, Whatever ugliness or beauty we might have watched during our previous inhalation could feel as if they were melting into the simplicity of just a visual object. As we rest in our exhalation, whatever harmony or discord we might have watched during our previous inhalation could feel as if they were melting into the simplicity of just an auditory phenomena, and so forth and so on. Whatever, as we rest in our exhalation, whatever happiness or sorrow we might have watched during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of just an emotion. As we rest during our exhalation, whatever hate or love we might have watched during our previous inhalation could feel as if they were melting into the simplicity of just intention. Now, you could very well say, hey, if I don't do that, will I become a psychotic bastard? Will I become completely amoral? No, and here's the reason why. The more we cooperate, the more our watching and our resting cooperates with the two facets of our autonomic nervous system. The more the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala is calmed, and the more the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus is gently stimulated. The more we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system through watching and resting in correlation with our inhalation and exhalation, the more we cannot help but practice loving kindness. We cannot help but practice the loving kindness of intention, the loving kindness of communication, the loving kindness of conduct, the loving kindness of commerce that constitute 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. The more we practice the watching and resting in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation, the more we cannot help but have our choices and our utterances and deeds, and our deeds flow not from contrived calculation, not from wild scatterness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. It is this centered spontaneity, this doing without doing, that makes it possible for us to use all the organelles of our central nervous system, including the ones in front, in at last a deeply sustainable and productive way that unleashes the creativity of our inner genius. So let us now discuss let us turn our attention away from perceptual non-duality and over to remedial non-duality, remedial equanimity. And here's how that works. Whatever sight, sound, sensation, flavor, scent, emotion, intention, thought, memory, or imagining that we notice, we have the same remedy. What's that remedy? We watch it during our inhalation, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, and we rest into it during our exhalation. That's it. Regardless of whether that which we have noticed is external or internal or physical or mental or pleasurable or painful or interesting or boring or glorious or grotesque. Regardless of what are the attributes of that which we notice. Our remedy is the same. We watch and rest in coordination with our inhalation and our exhalation. It is just that easy. Here's the rule of thumb. What is the key to effortlessly practicing mindfulness, effortlessly and efficiently? All we got to do is silently and mentally recite the verb watch every time we feel our chest swell with breath. What is the rule of thumb by which we can most efficiently master meditation? All we got to do is silently and mentally recite the verb rest every time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. Let's return to what the big kids call the root text. The mind of awakening gives rise to all appearances. Being unborn, it is indestructible. The timeless space of pure being is beyond the reach of contrived contemplation's thought. Let's bring this back to renunciation. Whatever good or bad we experience, we watch as we breathe in, becomes profoundly intangible as we relax, as we rest in our exhalation. This does not happen because we're clever people who have embraced pseudo-intellectual mental gymnastics. This does not happen because we are superstitious and devout and believe certain things. This happens because of the way that the central nervous system, for the majority of complex life forms on this planet, have evolved. Therefore, there is no need for us to indulge our controlling tendencies and our rigid tendencies. And instead, we can be just as laid back and as flexible as Qui-Gon Jinn. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. 4. Meditate like a Jedi is made possible due to the generosity of viewers, just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let us sit and breathe and watch and rest. The free fall that is meditation can feel jarring to the parts of our brain that are prone to being rigid and controlling. A useful coping mechanism, therefore, could be to play with a variation of Bengali crease counting. Let us touch the tip of our left thumb to the lower set of creases on its left little finger, that we might keep track of our first set of 16 inhalations. Let us now rest this left hand, palms up, in our lap. Every time we silently and mentally recite the verb watch during our inhalation, let us advance our right thumb up the creases and tips of each of our fingers. Together as a team, let us count thusly, beginning with our right little finger. Having run out of places upon my right hand upon which to rest the tip of my right thumb, I can now return my attention to my left thumb and advance it to the next set of creases. And now you get the basic idea of how we could count 16 sets of 16 inhalations each. It takes about, to let's try this again. To count 16 inhalations takes a little bit more than 1 minute. To count 16 sets of 16 inhalations each takes a little bit more than 20 minutes. When beginning to gather our first collection of 20 minutes, we could rest the first knuckle, the lowest knuckle, on our right middle finger upon the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. When beginning to gather our second collection of 20 minutes, we could rest the middle knuckle of our right middle finger on the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. When beginning to gather our third collection of 20 minutes, we could rest the upper knuckle of our right middle finger upon the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. Overwhelmed? The antidote is repetition. Practice with me at least about once every 12 hours or so, and within a week or two, you too could master the Buddha's path. There are many elitists who insist that we must assume the full lotus position, even though the Buddha never taught that. When we examine closely the most ancient Buddhist statuary, we do not see the Buddhas sitting with their shins crossed in the full lotus posture, but with their shins in parallel, like the two pieces of bread comprising a sandwich. This is what some people describe as the quarter lotus posture. The test of our the test of our sitting is not how pretty it looks, but whether it allows us to sit comfortably and sustainably in a way that promotes joint health and in a way that allows us to sit relatively tall during each inhalation. The moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques of Taoism, Buddhism, Tantra, Dzogchen, Zen, or Mahamudra, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 5 minutes or so. One of the nicknames for enlightenment is nothing special, and that is because enlightenment is simply mastery of the Eightfold Path, mastery of the art of passively cooperating with our own autonomic nervous system, which has already evolved to watch and rest in cooperation with the phases of breath. All we need to do is silently and mentally recite the verb watch as we breathe in and recite the verb rest as we breathe out. And enlightenment is only a week away. How cool is that? There are some who would say, well, a Buddha would never feel that emotion. No. The key to enlightenment is mindfulness. That is vulnerable. That stands naked before the objects of perception, which include not only the five senses, but the emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. The liberation the Buddha offers us is not liberation from painful emotions, the presence of painful emotions, but rather liberation from their tyranny. How do we cut the puppet strings that whereby our painful emotions could control our choices and utterances and our deeds? Simple. Just by watching and resting in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation. As we watch armed thugs abuse our neighbors who might not look like us, who might not sound like us, there's a very childish part of us that might want to make ourselves very, very small and just hide until the whole thing blows over. But the more we watch in harmony with our inhalation, the more we rest in harmony with our exhalation, the more our fearful amygdala will calm, and the more our empathetic anterior cingulate gyrus will energize. And so just by watching and resting, we can't help but care more and more for our neighbors who are being brutalized, sometimes murdered. We might not know always what the best thing to do or how to do it or when to do it is, but the more we watch and the more we rest, the more we will tap into our intuitive creative genius that can help us to make the best decisions and say the best things and do the best things in the best way, in the best timing. And so we use mindfulness and meditation not as an escape, but as a way to first cope and then respond in the manner whose strategy is the most sound. Maybe not for our convenience, but for the well-being of our neighbors and humanity and the planet. They tell me the best time to plant a fruit tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. And though doing so might not ensure that we will live long enough to rest in its shade or enjoy its produce, others will. And the meaning of life is found in cooperation, in service to our neighbors. This is not some lofty philosophy, but the inevitable conclusion of anybody who watches and rests in harmony with their breathing at least once every 12 hours or so. Watching and resting becomes the dynamo that helps us to choose and say and do the right thing, regardless of whether or not we have permission. When I was a little boy, my family and another family rented a condominium on the beach in Mazatlan for a week. I think I was 12 because I was preparing for my bar mitzvah. I was from another culture. And so when I went to the store to buy a comic book, I didn't bargain. I just said, "May I please bargain with you?" And because I wasn't the first clueless white child that the shopkeep had ever met, he said, "Sure, you can bargain with me." And with the best of intentions, but the utmost of ignorance, I asked permission to bargain, which is silly. Silly, silly, silly. We do not need permission to do the right thing. We do not need permission to love our neighbors. When I was in Hebrew school, when I was in Torah school as a little boy, a really cool teacher said, love is not a noun, it is a verb. It is not what we feel, it is what we say and do. And that really stuck with me. So we practice mindfulness and meditation to fuel the dynamo of our neighborly love. I love watching videos on YouTube of dogs and cats, and I've seen a video of a heroic cat defending um, human children against a neighbor's dog. I've seen video of a cat defending a chihuahua against coyotes. Defending the unarmed from the armed, defending the weak from the strong can be dangerous, but it is always the loving thing to do. Two things can be true at the same time. We can feel fear and yet still choose and say and do the kind thing. In about 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening lesson, followed by the group practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.